Hey guys, this is Bharadwaj with PhoneArena.com, and today we have a very special comparison for you. We have a comparison of 4 displays of 4 Full HD phones. So by the order of release, we have the HTC One, the LG G2, the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 and the Google Nexus 5. So this is just launched and people have been asking us how the display of the LG Nexus 5 is in comparison with the other heavyweights like the G2, which is apparently the phone is based on, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, which is probably one of the best displays around in the market right now. So let's quickly go through the specifications of all these displays. The HTC One has a 4.7-inch display. This is with the 1080p resolution and is based on the SLCD3 technology. So HTC has been pioneering this SLCD technology since the HTC One X, which was based on the SLCD2. Now it's based on the SLCD3 and it's fantastic. We have the Google Nexus 5 here on the right. This is not actually specified, but the display is obviously made by LG and has the IPS display with a resolution of 1920 by 1080. This was 4.7 inches. This is 4.95 inches. And then we have the LG G2, of course. It has a 5.2-inch display with really thin bezels, as you can see. This is a true Full HD IPS Plus display. That's what LG calls it. And again, this display is also fabulous. And finally, we have the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, which has a 5.7-inch display, Full HD resolution, 1920 by 1080, and a Super AMOLED Full HD panel. So this is a pentile screen, not RGB pattern like the other screens, but this is an AMOLED panel, so it has its own tricks. It has infinite contrast for starters, so that's going to be really helpful in contrast tests. But that's not what we are going to see right now. So what we are going to compare is some real life examples in the dark and in the outside in bright outdoors. So we can gauge the performance of all the displays and probably come to a conclusion about which display is better, and more likely we have to talk about the Google Nexus 5's display because that's just out and people have been clamoring for information on the display. So let's start with the test. So the first test, we put all the devices in the exact same order in a head-on viewing angle. So the camera is placed exactly above the phones in a dark room, as you can see. So we have cycled some colors to see which phones reproduce the colors the best. So take a look at that. So from a head-on viewing angle, as you can see from the colors here, there's not much of a difference between all the 4 displays. At this exact viewing angle, all the displays perform really great, with the Note 3 alone bringing in a little bit of extra brightness. By the way, we have set all the displays to 100% brightness before starting all the tests, so that's a given. We also cycled a set of preloaded images on our own display tester app. So again, this is set at 100%. So take a look at all these pictures and how they look on the respective displays. Well, as you can note, again, almost not much of a difference between these pictures. The Note 3 alone seems slightly saturated, oversaturated perhaps, and the G2 too matches up even with its LCD panel. So the Note 3 and the LG G2 performed almost toe-to-toe in this test, but the Nexus 5 and the HTC One displayed slightly washed out colors in some of the images. So that's what we inferred from this test, but this is just the head-on angle. We couldn't notice much of a difference, by the way. So we decided to increase the difficulty up a notch by changing the viewing angle. So what you're seeing now is probably the same plane but a different field of view. So we have decreased the height so that there is a desk feel from what you are seeing right now. So in this test, we cycled the same set of images and we found out a few things. So here the Note 3 is the brightest and is the most saturated. You can start seeing that the LCDs lose out on the viewing angles when compared with the AMOLED panel. The LG G2 is probably equally saturated with the Nexus 5, while the HTC One has lesser brightness, but we can see that the Note 3 completely stands out in this test. But still we are not seeing what we can see with the naked eye. The LCD panels have a bit of gray added to the black, but we are not seeing it in the camera. So we increased the difficulty even further by having two extreme viewing angles, one on the right. So what you are seeing now is from the right. You can note that the HTC One is the dimmest, the Note 3 is the brightest, the Nexus 5 has the worst viewing angles, and the LG G2 too suffers from bad viewing angles, but it's not as bad as the Nexus 5. The Nexus 5 also bleeds light from the top of the screen, as you can see from there. We have cycled the colors, what you're seeing right now, and even some images. All of the images say one thing: the Note 3 is oversaturated and very bright. Also, these oversaturation and brightness aspects carry out in all the viewing angles. Yes, the colors are inaccurate, but that's what we are seeing right now in front of the camera, and you can see that the LCDs have still a lot more to do in comparison with the AMOLED panels of Samsung. So we took the same opposite side of the viewing angle and we saw different results here. The Note 3's colors were more inaccurate, but still it retained the brightness and the viewing angles, while the HTC One showed better results here. The G2 and the Nexus 5 still performed really poorly. We also cycled these colors at these extreme viewing angles, as you saw already. It was surprising to note that not a single phone could accurately represent the color. So each phone displayed different colors at this extreme viewing angle, and probably the Note 3 was the worst offender, with it producing really web style harsh colors with extreme brightness, while the LG G2 and the Nexus 5 were like extremes. The LG G2 was like red on one side and blue on the other side, while the Nexus 5 was white on either side. The HTC One though preserved a little bit of accuracy, and out of the lot we can say that the HTC One is more accurate than all the three phones. We also tested the outdoor visibility quotient of all these phones. So we took them out in two conditions. One was in very bright outdoors, not within a shade but near to a shade, because we couldn't see anything in the extremely bright sun of Chennai. So that's what we did. So here is the comparison of all the phones head on. You can see that almost every one of them is same, but similarly Note 3 is exhibiting better viewing angles here at some point. We also took all these phones inside a shade. It was still bright outside, but we took them inside a shade and saw how a typical display would be in that condition. We didn't see much of a difference in this condition even at extreme viewing angles, so all the phones performed really nicely in fact, but we expected a lot more. We have seen other devices do much better in outdoors. All these phones have a bit of reflectivity in the glass, even the Note 3 and the G2 and the Nexus 5 and the HTC One too, so all have the reflectivity, so we didn't see much of an advantage of one phone over the other. So that concludes our display test today. We actually set out to find how the Google Nexus 5's display is, and I think we got the answer here. Google and LG have certainly looked to cut corners for the price. The $349 price for the 16 GB version, that's really damn low for a high-end phone like the Nexus 5. So they have clearly cut corners, and one of them seems to be the display, especially in terms of viewing angles and especially quality issues. We saw the light bleeding at extreme viewing angles. So that's exactly that. And then we have the LG G2. The G2 is possibly one of the best LCD phones out there right now, no doubt about that. We saw that on the head-on tests that LG G2 performed as good as the AMOLED panel on the Note 3. LG have done really great here. But one of the things we noticed at extreme viewing angles is the obvious pitfalls of the actual viewing angles of LCD, and we noticed that there is a lot of color distortions on the LCD screen of the LG G2. So that's a bit of a con we would like to say about the LG G2, but nevertheless this is probably one of the revelations of this test, because It is expected that Samsung makes great AMOLED panels, but Note 3 is possibly one of the best AMOLED panels ever made, just because of the brightness, the saturation, even though it might not be accurate, and of course the extreme viewing angles. In every viewing angle you could actually see the image. That's actually one excellent thing about the Galaxy Note 3. But all these phones performed really same at head-on angles, so there's not really much difference in terms of these phones looking head-on, so which is the most used angle of your phone. And finally, we have the HTC One, which is my personal pick because it displayed all the colors really accurately, but might be a little dim for our tastes. But we are not using the phones in extremely dark rooms all the time, so it should be really good for all the lighting conditions and viewing angles. We saw that this is possibly one of the best LCD panels ever made, except for the brightness. So this is our pick, but what is your pick? That's what we want to know. So let us know what you think in the comment section below. What do you think of the Google Nexus 5's display? That's the main question here. Also answer that. We hope you enjoyed this video. Do hit the like button if you did, and do hit the subscribe button if you want more videos like these from our channel. Thanks for watching.